Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Altius Images Drone Positive podcast. I'm Todd Dudley and I'm the founder and director of Altius Images. As a drone pilot myself, the negative press that drones receive annoys me no end. Whether drones have shut down a major airport or are being used to try and kill Spider-Man in the latest Marvel blockbuster, the public opinion of our multi-roted friends is often a negative one. This podcast is trying to change that opinion one positive story at a time. There are plenty of stories out there that show just how amazing drones can be, and I'll be bringing you one of those stories each week. So let's fly into some positivity and see just how amazing drones are. This week we're starting off with a classic story of a rescued puppy. Not quite a cat stuck up a tree, but a puppy stuck down the cliff instead. So this story goes back to June of 2016, and it's a story that was actually published on the DJI website. And it's a story about a very, very cute young bull mastiff dog who had gone out for a walk with his owner. And he got a little bit too excited and ran a bit too close to the edge of the cliff. And unfortunately, the cliff gave way and the puppy fell down to a spot that the owner couldn't reach. So the owner rang the police, who then rang the fire department. And luckily, this town, which is Gold Hill in Oregon in the United States, luckily their fire department had already begun using drones in some of their work. So Mike Calhoun, who was the Jackson County Fire Department's battalion chief, which makes him sound incredibly important, I'm sure he was, he made the decision to try out the department's new DJI Phantom. So using the aircraft, they were able to quickly scout the site and locate the puppy and send the rescue team down to him and bring him back up to mum and dad just in time for dinner. So fantastic story. I know if you're listening on the podcast, you can't see the puppy, but a very, very cute puppy. And what is more positive than saving a adorable puppy? So we can find a little bit more from Mike Calhoun here. DJI got in touch with him and asked for a little bit more information on how it went. So they asked if he could explain in detail how the Phantom improved the rescue operation. And here's what he had to say. The Phantom aided in the rescue by providing an excellent vantage point to observe the movement of the puppy and our rescuer once he reached the bottom of the cliff. Once the rescuer was lowered to the river's edge, he had to disconnect from the rope system to make contact with the puppy. The Phantom was able to track him and monitor his progress much better than the rescue observer stationed at the top of the cliff edge. So not only did the drone help to find the puppy at the start, it then helped within the operation by keeping an eye on the rescuer himself. So if you imagine a guy rappelling sort of down the cliff with his observer at the top, there came a point where the observer couldn't see him, and luckily they had the drone on hand to track the progress and keep an eye on the puppy as well. He was then asked, do you think you'll keep integrating drones in your work? Are there any other uses you can see for them? I'd imagine the answer is yes and yes, and it says, it's our intent to continue to look for creative ways to integrate the Phantom into our rescues and various other types of emergency responses. This is something I think is a huge market. It's being used a lot in the USA and it's being started to use here in the UK as well. For first responders, for looking at fires, looking at how they started, as this one did, looking for people, or in this case, puppies. I think it's a huge market that's going to just expand and expand and expand. Back to Mike. We plan to use it for initial operations during wildfire incidents until safety and law dictates we land it upon arrival of firefighting aircraft. We also plan to fly the Phantom during building fire incidents to gain an aerial 360-degree view of the incident. This view should aid incident commanders in understanding the magnitude of these types of fire more clearly. Okay, so again, getting that overview nice and early. It's cheap, it's safe, and it's a great use of the drones. So that brings us to the end of the first episode of the Drone Positive podcast. Short and sweet, not a long story, but a very positive one. Thank you very much to those of you out there that are listening. Always a bit strange recording a first podcast, as you're never sure if anyone's going to be listening. Mum, I'm sure you are, so thank you very much. We'll be back next week with another positive story about drones. As I said at the start, I am fed up and bored of all the negativity surrounding them. So we're trying to change that narrative, that public opinion, one positive story at a time. If you are in the drone industry and you feel the same as I do, please do share this podcast, get people listening to it, and let's try and change people's opinions. Subscribe to the podcast and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Altius Images. Thank you very much for listening, and hopefully see you next week. Fly safe, folks. Bye-bye.